Hey guys, welcome back to the Goodfellow Podcast. Happy Monday. Listen, you like us, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And don't forget about the Patreon channel, which I got some really good movie reviews and some other stuff too as well, like my paperwork, some documentations of my case and so on. Well, don't forget we got the Goodfellow store where you can get all the nice shirts and cups and all of that stuff. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about my good friend Pete Savinello. I know he doesn't think about me anymore, so he says. Anyways, my dear friend Charlie Bonanno, who I always talk about here, and here's his book From Crime to Christ, did me a favor and went to Pete's house yesterday. He wanted to get the CD, which Pete knows he has my CD from the Escalade that I owned or leased, and he still has it, but he acts like he doesn't have it or whatever. I know it sounds petty, and a lot of this stuff is about my life, but I want to show a lot of people out there what kind of a friend you could have or not have. And I'm going to be brutally honest with a lot of stuff today. When I took my second pinch, I had an Escalade for prepaid for 2 years. That's how you get a good deal. You prepay it. He drove around my Escalade, and when it came out that I cooperated with the government, he drove around in my Escalade, told everybody that I was a rat. He's a rat. He's this. He's that. He says he's my friend since he's known me my whole life. And that's what he does to me. Meanwhile, he knew all along that I was working with the FBI. He knew because he sent his girlfriend at the time, at one time, Lisa Piero, because she was having a problem with one of her ex-boyfriends. I don't know if it was Tommy Rendo or whoever owed her money. My handler, Vinny Pizzuti, went and talked with her, sat down with her. Supposedly, Pete told me that the FBI agent tried to pick up Lisa. Lisa was very pretty. Maybe he did make a pass at her. I really don't know. I wasn't there. He couldn't help her anyways for whatever the reason was, but that's one story. My friend Charlie asked him for the CD. He did admit it because that he has it, but he says, "Okay, I got it." Like, in other words, he don't know what I'm talking about, he said. Or he don't even think about me anymore, that I lost a friend for life. Well, a long time ago, I spoke to my friend Benito. And Benito said to me, "Joe, you created this guy." And to a little bit, that's sort of right. But I never created him. I enabled him. He was always a conniver. Okay, always a conniver. But I enabled him because he knew when I had his back all the time, and I did. And I'm going to tell you some stories about having his back. I spoke to Charlie, and Charlie reminded me about the time I used to work at Gould Buick. Gould Buick was there. I used to polish cars for a living. That's how I got started in the car business. Pete and got stupid with Charlie for whatever reason. I forget what the whole story was. Even Charlie can't remember every little thing, but I do remember Charlie hitting him in the head with the jack. And I stopped Charlie from killing him. Okay, because if Pete would have took another hit over the head or something like that, he probably could have killed him. But Pete doesn't care about that. Pete stole $5,000 from this girl, Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie's mother was going out with this guy, Ralphie. His father was somebody to do. I don't think Ralphie was a wise guy, but he had connections. I think his brother Arnold became somebody. I really don't know. Maybe in his own mind, I really don't know, nor do I care. But the girl talked to her mother about it. The mother went to Ralphie, and they were going to send some real guys after this kid, Pete. Well, my father helped Pete then too, said nobody's going to touch this kid. So my father calls the kid, Pete, upstairs when I come to my house, and he talks to Pete upstairs by himself. I don't know what they said all 100%. I don't know if my father gave the kid, the girl, the money for Pete. I really don't know. My first bid, I go away. Pete owes me $30,000. I lent it to him. I think I bought him a vet. He wanted a vet, money and all of this stuff. So while I was away in prison, he gave me $5,000 back. So he owed me $25,000 when I came home. He said, "Joe, is it all right if I work off the stuff?" We started doing some things. I told the FBI later on about it. I think, they caught me once or whatever. And we were making some maneuvers and we were making money. But he was making the money back that really I should have been making all of it. But because he was my friend, I let him work it off. But he did things behind my back even while he was working off the money. He actually asked me, he said, Joe, could I have a couple extra thousand, and we'll still work it off the rest of the next job, the next this, the next that. I said, okay, Pete, don't worry about it. We needed some people to work with us, and I'm not going to say their names. They had to help us. And he said, Joe, stay out here. They don't like you. They like me, and I can get a better deal for us. You know what that means? Yeah, he did get a better deal, but for him, not for me. And that's okay, too. I still was making money. He wanted to put extra money in his pocket. As a friend, I don't care. But I'd like it if you were honest with me and just tell me. I don't care if you needed to make money. Like I gave him a ring one time and to sell it. He said, what do you want for it? I said, get me 1,000. Well, he got 1,500 or 1,400 for it. So I was going to give him money out of my pocket for selling it for me. He goes, then he didn't say, no, Joe, I made money already on it. I said, well, I'm going to give you a couple of dollars. And he says, because he didn't think I was really going to give him some money, I was going to give him $100 for selling it for me, 10%. He said, no, I made money on it. I said, wow. And you didn't tell me? He goes, well, what do you care for, Joe? You asked for $1,000. I got you 1,000. And he's right. I don't mind that. And also, let me start this off too. I don't hate Pete. I can never hate him. But what he's done to me, he acts like he's so innocent. One thing Pete is, and I'm going to tell you honestly, Pete is a very talented liar. He really can twist the truth, really good. I have the list of a few things I want to say, but I want to say about the money that I had in the bank that he was holding for me and watching it for me while I took my second pinch. I think there was like 500 misplaced from it. I can't exactly say 100% sure because it's over 15 years ago. But he did have another ring that I asked him to sell for me, a diamond ring, lady's ring. He never gave the 1,500 to my fiance at that time. He talked to my cousin Debbie bad about me, where he actually turned my own cousin against me, which wasn't hard. I did something wrong to her, and so I made amends with her now after all these years. But she was right. I did something wrong. It was about a piece of property that we had, and that's another story. But she was right about that, and he used it to twist her against me. Just like he wanted a good friend of ours named Rob, great guy, married now, happy in his life. He wanted me to sleep with his ex-girlfriend that he broke up with, that he was broken-hearted over for. He goes, oh, no, Joe, she's pretty, she's this, she's that. You can go into the bar. I know you can do it, Joe. You can get her. This way I could go back and tell him that she's no good. Now, could you imagine me doing this to a friend? Now, look, this happens in life all the time where you break up with a girl and she'll go with one of her friends to either get you back, or the friend really wanted to go with her and goes, hey, you were broken up. They use all those little excuses. But the bottom line is it's wrong no matter how you look at it. Out of all the girls, you had to go with my ex-girlfriend. You were that, envious of me and, or whatever. So no problem. But I never did it. Just like I never went with any of my friends' girlfriends, and I never would. And I had chances, and I'm not going to embarrass them here on this show. As a matter of fact, speaking about embarrassed, Pete's wife, Grace, what a wonderful person. And like I said, I apologize for her parents. They just both passed away. And so she has my condolences on that. But she's going to stick by Pete no matter what. I don't blame her. Because he antagonized her to no end. Here it was, he meets this girl. He doesn't tell anybody. He knows she's got a few dollars. Her parents got money anyway. She got a good job. He takes my Lincoln LSC, brand new, 1997, to impress her, picks her up in the Bronx. I'm living in Yonkers at the time. Takes her wherever he takes it, then he takes her to the house. He cooks for her the chicken franchise and all of that stuff that he used to do with all the other girls that she don't know about. Or that was his little trademark, to cook the chicken franchise and everything and make it look like he had it going on for himself, because he lived in the basement of the house that he now owns. And he used to tell all the girls, listen, you ain't ready for a guy like me. You stay in the basement. You ain't ready for the penthouse. Meanwhile, he was the one that's in the basement. Then he takes the car back to me. It's dirty, and I had a full tank of gas. I just parked it right in front of the house where I was living in. I didn't say nothing. As long as the kid was happy, I didn't care. Because in a lot of ways, and a lot of times, Pete and I had a lot of good times together. That I think he always had my back. I knew his mom. I knew his stepfather. I knew his real father because he happens to be Sal DiRaffaelli's son. They can deny it all they want, but the bottom line is that's the reason why supposedly Sal's wife had a nervous breakdown, and all the DiRaffaellis, they got to keep it quiet. They all know because one time I think Pete was fooling around one of the DiRaffaelli girls, and then I think Joni at the time, he told me, said, you can't have anything with her because she's related to you. So that's how I know that. Plus, when I used to go see Sal, they had the same teeth, they had the same nose, they had everything. Now, Pete's mother, Barbara, was beautiful. And now, you could ask Lenny Monteleone this. Lenny Monteleone and myself were in a bar. We went, I think his Aunt Wanda was there. Aunt Wanda was a big woman, tough lady. And Pete's mother was beautiful all her whole life. And you know what happens with most beautiful women. They're always getting hit on guys and this and that. But anyways, I went to kiss her hello, and she made out with me. And I kissed her back for a second because I guess it was just a habit and I got shocked. I stopped. Lenny looked at me, gave me the dirty look. She grabbed my face like this and she says, you know, Joe, out of all Pete's friends, you're the only one I liked. And now it proved it. But I didn't make a move on her because Pete was still my friend. And believe me, she was a beautiful woman. I don't even know if she's alive still or not. I don't even know. And she was cool like that. Like, you know, you could talk to her. She'd been around the block. She knows the score. She actually taught Pete about how to treat women and stuff like that because Pete went out with an older woman. I think she was in her 40s. Pete was like 17 or 18 years old. And I think she broke his heart, and then the mother told him how to handle it and everything like that. So Pete is very well versed in how to manipulate people, and especially girls. I mean, the things he's done to them over the past. I mean, he even told me when he grabbed his wife and he grabbed her by the hair and he's scared. He had to come to my house once, and he says, look, can I sleep over tonight? I said, sure, what's going on? Now, he wouldn't tell me. He just told me that he had to teach Grace a lesson. Now, whatever they were fighting about at that time, I don't know. He never told me, in all honesty. But he did sleep at my house, and then, of course, he went home, and she didn't go to work. She was crying. She was all messed up. Because Grace, a long time ago, I was at the prom with her. So it was the girl I was seeing from the Bronx, another couple of couples, and then there was also her with the kid, her ex-husband, Mike. Mike was all right. He was a decent guy. He looked like Pete, only he was with blondish hair, like dirty blonde hair, however you say it. But that relationship didn't work out. So now they get mad at me because I told their next door neighbor that I knew Grace longer than he did. And all I did was say the truth. You were married. What's the problem with that? You were married. It's not the end of the world. She wasn't a tramp. She wasn't a run around in the street. She was a good girl. Okay? Come from a good family. But yet they wanted to make me feel like I did something wrong. See, that's the whole thing about Pete. He wants to think everybody is wrong but him. He wants to think that he's always the one that's the one here on the high horse. Just like when he used to go deer hunting, he used to put apples and everything to get the deer to come, and he'd shoot them from a van, not stay in the woods, and then he'd leave them there and just not even get them. Once in a while he'd go back if it was a buck, and he'd have about one or two people to help him. He took my friend Mike Donato, okay, and I still call him my friend. I don't know if he likes me anymore or not. I really don't know. Mike Donato, he antagonized him to no end. So Mike said, look, Joe, I'll have a fight with him. Let me have a fight with the kid, and I swear, once he's down, I won't kick him. I won't do any of that stuff. I believed Mike. So I said, let's go meet at Iona where Mike wants to meet Pete. I'll be there with you. Mike said, Joe, you could be right there with him. Pete didn't want to go. He says, no, I don't want to do that. I said, but Pete, you've been breaking his chops. You've been antagonizing this guy. You don't want to, follow through? No. Well, Mike catches Pete by Mayflower Cleaners on North Avenue. He was with Junior, our friend Aurelio. Mike gets out of the car, says, come here, now I want to talk to you. And Pete starts running around the car. Mike is chasing him around the car. Okay? Well, now what does Pete do? The big guy that called me a rat, the guy that's hanging around with, he thinks a few people that's got a few connections. What does he do? He goes to the New Rochelle Police Department, and takes an order of protection out against Mike Donato, where I don't notice. He never tells me. Mike Donato calls me. He said, hey, I said, oh, shit. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Because I haven't heard from him. He said, listen, he says, the police just left here. I said, what's the matter? You okay? He says, they served me with a piece of paper saying that I have an order, Pete has an order of protection out against me. This is what you do? I'm out there running and ripping and roaring, and you do this without even telling me? So I go to Pete's house. I said, Pete, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? He goes, well, Joe, he'd never leave me alone. I said, but that's wrong, Pete. You antagonize this guy, and then finally when he gets mad and he's going to stick up for himself, you run to the police? But he's not a rat, right? He's not a rat. Okay. When I had the problem, you've heard plenty of times Dominick and myself talk about Hippie and Sally Lark and all of that stuff. Well, when I tried to put a quick marriage together because they had a fight and they all jumped, because this is what they did in their life down there in the Bronx. They jumped this kid, John Sinnis. He lost hearing in one ear, I think, for whatever. They got him drunk, pretended they were friends again, and then they jumped him. Well, now they get mad at me because I couldn't help them because John didn't want to drop the charges on them. I said, look, I'll give you the $3,500 for the doctors because that's what I asked Sal for. They want $3,500. That's what the bills was. They said, nah, Joe, he's not going to pay you back. I said, but let me worry about that. But they didn't take the money and they weren't going to drop the charges. And Sal wasn't giving me the money. So now Sal gets me, they pull up on the sidewalk right in front of Murray Richmond's building, right on the corner by, where it looks like a corner, but the building sticks out a little further than where Pasta is on Williamsbridge Road. Joe Constantine, Hippie, Sally Larker, maybe one other guy, I forget who it was. And Pete was so scared of his own shadow that he was practically in my pocket. And they were threatening to shoot me right there. But that's Pete. He's scared. He'll pretend he's tough, and he'll get nasty with some people like that. But he's not willing to go the whole 9 yards. He's not willing to go the whole way. As a matter of fact, years ago, he's a big kid. He always was big. I heard he lost a lot of weight now. I'm happy for him. He put his arms around me and he grabbed me. He goes, what are you going to do now, Joe? And I said, do you really think that since we're friends, I'm not going to do nothing? But if I wasn't your friend, do you think I don't bite the tip of your nose off? Are you kidding me? Really? Well, so then I made him think a little bit. So anyways, going back to Charlie goes and sees him, tells him about the bank and all of this stuff. I don't believe Pete robbed money. I thought it was $500. It might be. It's just so long ago, I don't know. But I do have the proof. He never gave the $1,500 to my then fiancée, Shannon. He made it difficult for her to pay my bills. She needed copies of my credit cards that I had open still and all of this kind of stuff. He broke her chops. He's going to do life. He's never coming home. Meanwhile, he said, I'll take care of her, Joe. Don't worry about it. Just go do your time, whatever you got to do. Get yourself out of trouble, and I'll help her. And he didn't. And I left $500,000 under his name. Now, he didn't take that. In all honesty, he did not steal that. But he got real salty and real pissed off when Shannon got the money back and said, and I put everything under her name. And her records, he says he has records, her records were all shown to me, all the money, all the stuff that was spent on my lawyers, commissary, credit cards, everything. So you could have all the proof you want, Pete, but I know the truth, okay? Now, the Escalade that he was driving around in, Pete had an old injury on his knee from skiing back in the days when he was younger. It's old. Back then they didn't have computers. So he goes to Teterboro Airport, and he's with my friend Dominick Cicale. We called him Fat Dom. He passed away now, okay? Gets into an accident with my Escalade. Collects $25,000, and I don't see a dime from that. Now, when we used to do scores, we equaled it out. He didn't give me a dime of that money. He kept all the money for himself, but he used my truck to do it. He could have threw me $5,000. He could have threw me $10,000. Could have threw me $7,000. Could have threw me anything. He didn't do anything. Kept it to himself because that's the way Pete is. As a matter of fact, there's stories, and I'll get the facts on them too. He even scammed his own father-in-law when he did work for them at the house when they were alive. May they rest in peace. Okay, that's the way Pete is. He'll say, "Here, anything he does, it's always going to benefit him. When I was going out with Joanne from the diners, he said, I hooked you up with her. She wanted to be with me. Well, she wanted to come with us with her niece, but Pete would have went with the niece, and I would have went with Joanne because Joanne's niece was more Pete's style. But this is the kind of stuff he wanted to do because she had a lot of money. He thought I was going to help him out. I was like, help him out with what? I'm not using her. Joanne and I were together for a lot of years. Another thing here. He says, why didn't Joe, if he had a problem, why didn't he come to my house, sit down like a gentleman, and he could have told me what was going on with the money, with the banks, with all of this stuff? Well, first of all, Pete, you and I both know you're going to open the door for me after I get acquitted, and I'm going to come see you. You wouldn't open the door for me. Couple of reasons. One, you went around telling everybody I was a rat. Now you're going to be seen with a rat? Number two, you're still scared of me. And you are. You could say you're going to fight me and all that baloney and all of this kind of stuff. You're not going to do nothing to me, bro. Just like all the other people they got. And then if they do have the balls enough to have a fight with me, let the chips fall where they may. That's all I'm going to say. But he would have never opened the door for me. Never. So how could I talk to him about anything? Okay. What about the time Anne Marie, the girl we talked about previously, she got married to a guy, Mario. Well, supposedly she was still in contact with Pete. So now Mario and Anne Marie's brother Rob comes passing by Hudson Park. We're over here parked on the side. I don't know what we were doing there. I forget. They pull over, and now Mario gets out of the car. I said, okay, Pete, we got to get out of the car. So Pete gets out of the car because I tell him to. Mario wants to have a fight with him. I break up all of that stuff too. Now, was he going to fight Mario or not? He'll say, yeah, I wasn't scared of him. Yeah, I know. They tell you that after the fact. Look, everybody who watches my show knows that I've been 100% accurate and truthful about everything I've ever said on this show. And if there was ever a time I make a mistake, I own up to it. Then he gets ready to take another beating from Angelo, okay? I told you the time. He comes and gets me, interrupts my night out with my girl. I go over there, and I almost wind up getting into a fight with the guy. Because I didn't like him anyways. He thought right away he's taking steroids. He got big and everything. Right away he's a tough guy. All those guys that hung around with Charlie Bonanno, they all thought they were tough after a while because they had Charlie behind him because he was big. But they were nothing, okay? Anyways, I saved him for getting a beating, and he embarrassed me because he didn't fight the guy. What did you come and get me for if you're not going to have a fight with the guy? Meanwhile, he was still fooling around with the guy's wife. You don't do that. And then expect nothing to happen to you. But once again, me. Now, he gets the house that he's still living in on Trino Street. And New Rochelle became a dump in my book. I mean, it's not the same that when I grew up with my friends. His father passes, well, it's really his stepfather. It's supposed to be his real father. And his real father, Pete, was this guy that I knew, my father knew, my mother knew, was a nice guy. But I think Barbara fooled around with this guy, Sal, when she was working for him at the diner, and that's what happened. And I believe that's the reason why they got divorced. But anyways, he passes away, and his wife then owned the house. Now, Pete wanted the house. So he threatened her, and I found this out much later, that I would come in and hurt her if she didn't give me the house. She didn't give him in the house. I said, okay. I didn't know this. Every time I saw her by Lord and Taylor in Eastchester or New Rochelle or anything, she used to do a lot of walking. That's what she used to do. She walked a lot, Jean. I go, hey, Jean, how you doing? She'd get scared and walk away from me fast. So I told Pete this a couple of times. I said, hey, you're never going to guess I said. Damn, became nasty. I said, what's wrong with her? And he would giggle a little bit. He goes, I don't know. Don't worry about it. And then finally, after a couple more times, he finally told me, he says, I told her that if she didn't give me the house, you were going to come in and take care of her. That's what you do? You talk about me like that? Meanwhile, all he had to give her was $50,000. That's all he paid for the house. He refinanced it and then was able to fix it up or whatever the case may be, because you can't only do so much with the house. And I never knew this. And meanwhile, this poor lady was scared of me her whole life. And Gene, if you ever listen to my podcast, I was never going to do anything to you, even if he asked me. Okay, let him handle his own affairs when it comes to that. And talk about embarrassment. When we used to go for sushi, now even his own wife said this, and she said it to me. She says, you know something? Even he's so loud, he's so obnoxious. Sometimes he embarrassed her. They used to go out for sushi, and if he didn't like it, he'd bit nasty and loud, like he had the right to be fresh. I mean, look, he could be strong and whatever, but she actually got embarrassed a few times too. He used all my connections and embarrassed me, and that's not the only time he embarrassed me there too. Frank Salerno owned a car wash in Eastchester. He owned a car place too. He was always into the old used cars. But I used to get my car washed there all the time. They were good, hand washed, all of that stuff. He was excellent what they did. He went there and acted like a tough guy. Well, Frank Salerno had to put him in his place, and he told him, excuse me, you might read about the people that are in the books, but we are the ones in the books. So with that, I go there. Pete doesn't even tell me he has a problem with my friend Frank, who actually was a friend of mine. Frank says, he called me over. I go and I say, hey, Frank, how you doing? I go to say hello to him anyway. And he goes, listen, he said, your friend that came in here. I said, who? He said, I said, oh, jeez. I said, what happened now? He says, yeah, he thinks who the hell he is. He comes in here, tell him I don't even want him in here no more. Makes me look bad. For what? You don't do that. If my friend Dominick brought me to some place, I would always act more like a gentleman because he brought me there. I'm representing him. I used to get a deal with the dry cleaners. Okay? My father spent a couple $100 a week there all day long if it was, big money every month. And Reno was a good guy. He says, why can't I get the same deal as you? I said, Pete, talk to him. I can't tell you what I get and what I do. Well, he goes to Reno and he goes, why can't I get the same deal that Joe gets? So Reno comes and talks to me. I go there and I see him. And he says to me, Joe, he says, Pete, I can't give him the same thing as you. I said, Reno, you don't have to. This is your business. I'm not making money here. I'm not shaking you down or anything like that. You do what you want. This is your business. And he embarrassed me there too. And then I had to go to another dry cleaners after Reno retired and sold his place. This is the kind of guy Pete is. Okay, now, people might say, why'd you hang around with him for? Because there was a part of Pete that, like I said, he's a very talented liar. There's a part of him that's really a lot of fun, that you could have a great time with. I have pictures of him and I in Ito's Japanese Steakhouse when we were younger. His mother used to go out with this guy, Jerry Valenti, who owned Valenti Contracting in New York City. Electrical place. He would give us a couple of dollars to go out to eat. So Pete treated me to lobster and steak dinners, shrimp. So he did a lot of things good by me too. But that doesn't make you a good person. You did a good thing, but you didn't live your life that way. But that's okay. He still was my friend, and everybody has a fault. I have faults. He has faults. But to go around saying he lost me for a friend for life, really, Pete? Were you ever really my friend? Really? Why did you go around telling everybody I was a rat if you were my friend? Especially since you knew. And then you swore to everybody that you never knew what I was doing. The whole time you wanted to set up our friend Rob, okay? And Rob did get in trouble, and you wanted me to set him up. You wanted me to set up everybody, and I never would. I never would do that. That's just not who I am, because they were my friends. The wise guys were not my friends, except for the couple that I did make good friends with. Let's talk about his brother-in-law, Anthony, who rest in peace. Now, his sister-in-law, Terry Ann's another wonderful person because she comes from a good family. And that's what happens. When a girl comes from a good family, basically 9 out of 10, you're going to get a good girl. She was married to this kid, Anthony, and this guy, Anthony, I liked him. He was a good kid. Well, they were having problems, so you know what he did? Pete asked me to set him up with another girl, a stripper, which I knew girls that were hookers back then. I knew the pimps. I knew a lot of things like that. He wanted me to set him up, take pictures of him, and then show Terry Ann. I couldn't do that. Okay, he said to me, Joe, I'll set you up with Terry Ann. You guys will be happy forever. And that might be true. Terry Ann was a wonderful person. I did like her. She was smart, intelligent, pretty, all of that stuff. And it would have probably been a good match, but I wouldn't do that just to get with her. Either she liked me for who I was, but not to do something like that. But that's the caliber I'm dealing with, and that's the caliber you guys are out there dealing with. So when Pete goes and tells you, I got proof, I got this, I'm hanging around with the jewelry guy in the Bronx, I'm hanging around here, I'm doing this. Look, I had a bracelet, 5.2 carats of diamonds. It was really sharp looking. I wanted a bigger one. Well, the guy Joseph down in Manhattan made a bracelet. It's over 18 carats. It was $18,000. Pete says, I want that bracelet, Joe, or your bracelet. Which one you want? Joseph gave me the bracelet to take it to the guy that, the gemologist, to see how good it was, the color, everything was right. Well, we never went back. Pete says, don't pay him, don't go back. Now, this is 18 years ago, okay? And I said, Pete, so I didn't want to give him my bracelet because I like mine. It fit my wrist bigger. This thing is big and gaudy. So Pete's the one who actually got that bracelet, but yet Joseph hates me. And he has every right to because I'm actually the one he gave the bracelet to. But I never sold it, never had no money, never had nothing to do with it but giving it to Pete. And Pete never even thanked me for that. Pete never thanked me for anything that I've ever done for him. Now, all I can tell you is this. What Charlie Buono did for me, I really appreciate, okay? But Pete, before you start talking your talk, you need to walk the walk. You would have never sat down with me like a gentleman. You could pretend, but you would have never done that. Especially, what were you going to tell Raymond Barreras and all the guys you were hanging around that were part of my crew, that I was with them, that we were part of 3rd Street? You were never part of 3rd Street. When you could start thinking of some things that you did for me that was so good, tell me. You gave my fiance a hard time. You gave every girl I ever dated a hard time. The only thing you did for me one time is when you saw the girl, she was going behind my back. We weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. We just were together for 2 weeks. Sheila, that was her name. And then she was with that stupid kid, Jose. You saw them holding hands and you told me, Joe, I saw them and that's it. I called her up and did what you told me to do. Don't ever bother with me again. And that's it. And she didn't bother with me no more. So you were right. She didn't like me like that. I hope she's very happy in her life. I'd wish her and Jose no bad. But I had to get this off my chest a little bit today. Anybody who's dealing with anybody out there with talking with Pete, it's a shame. But the kid had a lot of good potential because he came from a decent family too. And it's a shame what he did. But don't turn it around on me, Pete. It's all you. And you could have been a man, but you're not. So anyways, with that, hope you guys like that story. Betrayal is a son of a gun. It comes from all walks of life, family, friends. Just be ready for it. Remember one thing. Don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one.